Okay, well, again, welcome, Allyson.
Thank you.
And I have to say, it is such a fun ad. I love watching those ads. And talk about it, I mean, I guess give us a little background in terms of, where it came about, but then how that message, or what the overall message for today is, as compared to, I guess, as it's evolved. I mean, 12 years, that's a lot.
Yeah. And I think when we first started, the whole idea around the Heisman House is that these athletes they're legendary athletes, but there's also, fans have this idea of what it is like to actually have them all around each other. And so there's this genuine curiosity from fans about what is it like if they were all together. And that's how we came up with the idea of what if there was this house that existed where they all do like normal stuff like washing the dishes, but how do you wash dishes as a Heisman? And so that's how it all kind of came together. And I think, having something for 12 years, it's, that's amazing for consistency, but also how do you keep it fresh? And I think what's interesting about Heisman and our partnership is that every year you have somebody new. That's just a mechanical part of the process. But there's an endless way for us to tell these stories. And I think the key thing of what we were trying to focus on for this year was, again, tapping into everyone. How do Heismans do normal everyday things? And obviously they're going to do them in a very Heisman way, which is how we came to that's how you Heisman. So it's about that natural competitive nature. We all have it as, kind of human beings, but Heismans take it to the next level. And that's really what we wanted to focus on. And I think we actually have the launch bot, which we launched at the very, very beginning of the season. So maybe we can play that.
Bryce, they let you off campus.
What's going on, T-Bo?
Because when I was the first ever sophomore to win the Heisman.
Whoa. What's up, Bryce? Go. What's going on here?
Just a little friendly competition,
That's cute, Derek, but the competition was reps.
Baker, boy, you're freaking me out.
Just can't read this guy.
Come on! Let's go! For your destiny! Come on! Get in there! Come on, Bryce!
All right, I love that. And I don't want to jump ahead if I am, but I feel like it has to be mentioned. This is the first time you're actually using a college student.
Yes.
And that's because obviously the NIL.
Yep.
And what is it, name, image,
likeness?
Image license. So maybe because I think that's a big change in what you were able to do this year.
Yeah, and so name, image, likeness. This was passed last year in accordance with the NCAA. College athletes, we weren't able to use them because you weren't able to pay them. With name, image, likeness, now brands and partners are actually able to pay student athletes. Bryce Young was last year's Heisman Trophy winner, so he became the first NIL athlete that we were able to use because he is a Heisman Trophy winner. And actually, I think in 2021, we were shooting the Heisman campaign, and we were all being on these shoots. It's like a fantasy land. It's just an incredible experience. But we were all afterwards, we were having dinner and things, and with some of the Heismans, and we were talking about what does it mean to be an NIL athlete, and more importantly, like how do we help these athletes make good decisions because they're still in school. They're 18 to 21 years old. So how can we help them make smart decisions, and how can we help educate them on what happens when you're starting to work with brands and all of the different facets that come along with that. And so that actually kind of led into kind of some supplemental work that we did for this year's campaign. Obviously, we're featuring Bryce, but he's in such a unique position because he's actively going through this process of evaluating deals while also being a student athlete, while trying to have a winning season. And so we wanted to kind of expand and start to not necessarily make Nissan's role in this about paying athletes, but how do we actually support student athletes? We have a long time, experience and history in college sports. We have the Heisman work that we do, but we're also corporate partners of the NCAA. And so we felt like that gave us some credibility to be talking about this. And so we created a series of content where we thought, instead of having a talking head that maybe these student athletes couldn't relate to, what if we had the Heismans help them kind of through this process, which is where we have a series of content that goes around that, and it's targeted towards student athletes. So maybe we can show that.
Why didn't you work out today? You didn't get a workout in today?
Oh, no,
Looks
not
like
yet.
it.
I'm waiting.
Are you feeling dangerous? You waiting to work out with him?
I'm not waiting to work out with
Don't
him.
do that.
I hope when I work with brands, they see me as a person that can inspire, a younger generation. Just because, kids are watching commercials, watching these interviews, and anytime I can give some knowledge to help a kid, I'm always for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to use your platform, because it's like, of course they want to emulate what we're doing on the field, but at the same time, they're also watching the personality off the field and how you handle and conduct yourself. So that's great.
I know one thing that I realized when I stepped away from the game is I know you can feel like, man, I'm really inspiring kids in Nashville, but I'm just in Nashville, and I'm just in, but you're not.
Yeah.
You are everywhere. It's not just NFL. Like, there's kids that love basketball that don't really watch football, that they know who Baker is, they know who Derek is. Don't feel confined by your market. You are everywhere. You are inspiring kids all over the planet. Yeah, how are you guys on this whole NIL thing?
They getting a check before they get their 8 a.m. schedule, their class schedule. So once they come in, they already got a check written for
Class?
No,
What's that?
Sign up for the prereq class.
What do I do with this? I don't need this.
I think it's great that players are finally getting a benefit from their likeness. So my only thing is I just don't want kids to lose that hunger, that want to make it to the next level or elevate their game each and every year, whether it's on the field, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the community. Don't lose where you came from and all the sacrifices that were made for you to get where you are today. Just keep staying hungry.
Looking back, I wouldn't change my story or how I did it by any means. I mean, my parents, we moved like 8 times my senior year of high school just so I could graduate from the same high school, and then they told me not to take a scholarship and to walk on. It's like, I think about if I was able to take money, the whole situation would have been different.
Take care of your own line. We all know how important that is. Make sure if you're eating a good steak meal, there's 7 or 8 guys that are all 300 plus pounds around you, and you got the bill every single time.
Yeah.
Because that is so important. You don't want to be a part of the team, but above the team. You want to be a part of the team.
Make sure your teammates are still your boys. That's what it's all about.
When you do have that time to focus on others, go after the most important. What is most important to your heart? Finding something that tugs at your heart and just diving into it and giving everything you got.
I want to be a resource with my foundation to be able to do those things and help kids and inspire kids and let them know whatever they want to be that they can do it no matter the circumstances.
It's got to make sense. It's got to be authentic. Like body armor was a huge thing for me because I was such a Kobe fan, and he helped start that and kickstart that company, and I loved his work ethic. And Progressive made sense because they were based out of Cleveland, so it was like once you sat down and they told me to act and be myself, that was pretty easy. I'm not trying to be an actor, but
Well, if you're not trying to be an actor, you're doing a killer job.
That was great. And I actually, because when you think of it with Bryce, he's actually going back to school because of Heisman rules or whatever. So it must be overwhelming in a sense. So it's the fact that you're putting together something like this, I would think that it would really benefit them.
And we have actually one of the episodes is with Bryce and his dad. And kind of they go in and they talk about the process of what it's like to kind of be under the microscope, and how they think about what the opportunities are going to look like for him into the future. Because obviously, you have kind of, in this example, you have 2 who are current NFL players and someone that's retired. They've already been through that process. So we also wanted to make sure that we got the voice of somebody who's actively going through it and what's going through their mind, and also with your family, because I think especially when you're that age, your family plays such a big part of your life.
Yeah. Well, and also, so this is obviously something new. This couldn't have been done, 3 years ago. But there's been a lot of changes, especially since COVID. Behaviors, consumers are expecting different things. Their behaviors are different. The channels, everything about it. You have to reach them in a different way than maybe what was successful even just a year ago.
Yep.
How have you changed? What are you finding that consumers are looking for today?
Consumers are looking for engagement. Where can they engage? And I think the idea that you can have something and just talk at everyone, that doesn't exist anymore. You really need to meet people where they are. And I think this is inside, sports sponsorships, but just in general when it comes to marketing. And I think what we've been seeing is, and we go through all of the data from all the campaigns and seeing really where are we seeing what people are interested in, how do they want to engage with us and as a brand, what is that type of content, where is that? And so all of that gets fed into the campaign development process. This year we really expanded into social media and specifically TikTok because this is where obviously a lot of Gen Zers are, it's where a lot of college student athletes are, so we had a lot of content there. And also we wanted to develop, and we wanted to also introduce NFTs. And when we were thinking about NFTs, we wanted it to go beyond it being a piece of digital art, but we actually wanted to think about how do you actually start to use an NFT as a digital key, and how does that help you unlock Heisman experiences as part of that. So we've also introduced these NFTs. There's a kind of a raffle for that, and we'll be giving away, and we're actually it's free to the consumers, but there will be we're going to be awarding a select number of NFTs. And we actually worked with Tim Tebow. He actually owns an NFT company, and so we worked with him on that. But it's meant to be that digital key, and how can you unlock those experiences? And we want to take the learnings from this into what does this mean for overall automotive marketing? How can we start to use this type of technology into some of the other marketing and customer experiences that we're developing?
And just tell me what NFTs really are.
Non-fungible token. I think the original thing that what people mostly refer to them, and this was about a year and a half ago, it was a digital piece of art that you would, the NFTs would be mined, and then you would be able to purchase this. What you're actually able to do with the ones that we're providing is that it then becomes an individual key to unlock experiences like how to have having a Zoom with a Heisman. Are there future experiences at our Heisman mobile tour, which goes around the country to different college campuses, those types of experiences. So we wanted it to be able to be this way. It's kind of a loyalty play, actually, of how it can unlock experiences for consumers.
And right today, that is perfect just because consumers are looking for more experiences. And
Yes.
we heard it a little bit from Meta in terms of talking about just being immersed in whether in the metaverse or with NFTs
Yep.
or whatever it may be. But so is any of the NFTs going to you? Like, how is it at all pushing Nissan in a sense, or is it strictly opening that world to the Heisman winners?
Right now it's specific to the Heisman winners. And obviously Nissan is integrated. We have a virtual Heisman House where we're kind of showing all of the vehicles, and we have avatars of the different athletes that are playing with that. But for this NFT, it's going to be specific to our Heisman content.
Okay, and do we have a NFT
I think
example?
no, we don't have any. We don't have examples of that. But if you follow us in social media, you're able to get that. You can follow at Nissan USA, or you can also follow at Campus, which is the Tim Tebow's NFT company that we're working with.
I think Tim Tebow is doing everything.
He is, yeah.
He is fun.
He's
very cool.
he's nonstop. He's just a plethora of ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, so we're talking EV.
Yep.
And what I asked earlier in terms of how do you really bring it to mainstream when there are so many people that there are obstacles, whether they don't have a home or just whatever it may be, and costs or all of the above. How do you market it mainstream so people are more accessible to it?
Yeah, and I think the all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya is coming out next month. Very, very excited for this product. But I think as we think about marketing, it's really about how do you address those barriers. And I think the thing is we know what they are. And I think consumers are telling us. So, we're constantly looking at what are consumers searching for? What are they interested in if they're starting to consider an EV? Also, why aren't they interested in? And so developing our communication plan around all of those, and how do you start to, basically address and kind of confront those barriers that people have, and how EVs are very much going to suit their life, whether it's, charging, whether it's range. I think just the ease of the vehicle, so we can take away some of that friction that exists there right now. And I think we've also been introducing, we also wanted to introduce some of this ease and capability into platforms like the Heisman campaign, and just showing kind of how quick charging can be, but also just how it's not as foreign as everyone thinks that it may be. And I think we used an analogy, and we'll show it in a minute, of everyone thinks that, like, when was the last time you saw a rotary phone? But those used to be so modern, and think about how far that we've come with smartphones. So we've kind of created that analogy for EVs, actually. So if we can run that one.
Coach, just plug it in.
Gee, how about that? Guys, just pick it up.
I don't like this thing.
They're on set with that one. So Bryce, we had the phone all set up and everything set, and he looks at it, he's like, oh, my grandmother has one of those. You're like, yeah, this is gonna work. Everyone's gonna get this one.
No, I think that's great. And I do think, yes, there is that, people just don't understand it. So then they think, or they think, oh, well, now I won't be able to ever, like I'm expected, like I think we mentioned, if you're driving to Vegas, and how many people are doing that. But I do think there are certain barriers, and you can't, are you trying to still coexist in the sense that it's, not EV or nothing kind of thing?
Yeah, and definitely, and I think that's been an intentional product strategy for us at Nissan, is that, I think consumers and especially in different pockets of the country, there are going to be consumers that are very much going to want to have an ICE engine. And I think, we're maintaining our portfolio is going to be for both. Because I think we're all very, very excited about the transition to electric, but that process is going to take time. And it's not going to go 0 to 100% overnight. It has doubled in the last year. It's at 5%. So everything else is an ICE engine. And so I think, that's why we've really been looking at, that's why we're supporting all of our babies. And that's sometimes what's hard, from a marketing standpoint, is how do you give it that love? And how do you give that to all of your vehicles, not just the new product? Fortunately for us this year, we're launching the Z, which is, amazing sports car, but also Ariya. And we see those two products as working really well together. And they're kind of the epitome of sports car as well as for electric. And so it's really kind of integrating those two.
And I think we do have that to show, but so that's what I was curious about in terms of, can you market together, or having you have to have separate, which I would think would be very expensive. So are you able to sort of incorporate them?
Yeah, and the beauty is that we've actually been marketing Ariya and Z together for over 1.5 years now. And what we're seeing is that consumers are very receptive to seeing a full lineup like this that can address any type of need. And both of these products are very much haloed for us. Z is the epitome of the sports car. Ariya is the epitome of where we are when it comes to EV, and even signaling where we're going into the future. And so I think, again, Ariya is getting ready to go, it's getting ready to go on sale next month. And we'll have a specific Ariya campaign around that. But we have been supporting both models, most notably in the last year, and the Super Bowl contained both. Right. And we feel like it really is a good representation of our lineup. And then I also think there's a little bit of nostalgia sometimes when you see products like the Z, which everyone is responding very, very positive to, and especially manual transmission, which no one ever talks about. But we also wanted to highlight that, because that was a sense of pride for us, for our consumers, for the fans of the Z. So we wanted to make sure that we celebrated that, and that also made its way into our Heisman campaign as well. So if we can run that.
This isn't about chasing some silly dream. It's about facing your destiny head on. All roads have led us here. Are we about to turn back now? I say nay. Inspired by the giants that have preceded us, we shall push forward to destiny.
Sure, Tim. Now what you want to do is gently push in the clutch and put it in first.
A first for destiny. A first for destiny. A first for destiny.
Leave Tim hanging like that. There's actually a follow-up spot where he's nailed driving a stick, but there's nostalgia that. And again, when we go in and when we actually look at what are people interested in when it comes to Nissan, Z actually comes top of mind. But the manual transmission has been such a big thing for us. We talked about it here. We also talked about it in our Super Bowl spot, and it's really been resonating with consumers. And that's why I think the two can coexist. You can have EV and you can have incredible ICE performance as well. Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, our lineup is going to be able to accomplish both.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to that. I first time learning, I moved to California, bought this beat up whatever manual, and I was told I would be taught. My friend was going to leave, but then I got called into work early morning, and I had to go drive my manual car to get to work.
Yep.
And yeah, I looked even worse than that.
Yeah. And the first time I learned, it was a 300Z. It was my dad's car, and I think I burned it out in a parking lot.
Yeah.
My boyfriend at the time was teaching me. It was painful. There were tears.
I know. And
not just me.
California is tough to have a manual with the traffic.
I would
have to say
imagine.
that.
I would imagine.
But anyway, I love Tim. I mean, he's awesome, and you work with a lot of different celebrities. Talk
Yep.
about that, working with the celebrities.
Yeah, and I think, I think obviously we have our relationship with the Heismans. We've also been working with Brie Larson, who's Captain Marvel. We've been working with her for, over 3 years now, actually. And I think in the case of Brie, we wanted to have someone come in that could tell a story with us about the all-new Sentra, which came out in 2020. And we wanted to have someone who exhibited confidence and the ability to have a coaching moment with somebody, but at the same time was very approachable. And Brie just kind of, she nails that. And then I think and we saw such a great response from consumers, and I think the familiarity is there. They really started, they really kind of started to associate Nissan with her, that we just started to keep building this out. And so we've been working with her for over 3 years now. And, essentially, I think what makes it work is that, between she and us on our side, we've been kind of building out this persona of her. And so it's still very, very real for her, but it's the Nissan version of Brie, and it's very authentic to who she is. She's a part of our family, basically. And I think that's what makes that work. And the same thing with the Heismans. We have, Tim Tebow we work very closely with from a brand ambassador standpoint. We also work with Eddie George. And these are all, they all have kind of relationships with us, and they have experience with us and this history with us, but they're able to help us tell our message and do it in their own voice, which I think is also what's important and what people really respond to. Jay Ellis is someone else that we've started to work with last year or earlier this year. Obviously, he was in Top Gun Maverick, so he will be in some upcoming work that we have coming out the early part of next year. And I think it's, sometimes there's this, this thought that, okay, you just use the celebrity and that's kind of the, that's the cheat. I think the key is that, that can be absolutely, and I think we've all seen a lot of examples of that, but when consumers are associating your brand with that person, that's when it really works. Where it doesn't work is when the celebrity is overpowering your brand. And I feel like we have deliberately gone in to make sure that the brand is what leads it. The people that we work with understand that they advocate for that. And I think that's why it does so well.
Well, before we open it up, I want you guys to ask questions of Allyson, but in terms of when you are choosing these celebrities, I mean, even with Brie, when you first see those spots, is that the actress? Like, what I mean? She's almost just like a regular person,
Yeah.
And obviously with the Heisman winners, it's a very different feel. But how are you figuring out which people, personality-wise, or what you believe in, what is the best matchup for Nissan?
Yeah, we had kind of a list of kind of mindset traits that we were looking for, and so we were looking at those, and to be perfectly honest with Brie, she rose to the top of that. And when we started to have discussions with her, and this is where I think I had a good feeling that it was going to work. It wasn't just about, here, give me the check. And I think, and sometimes that happens, unfortunately. She wanted to interview us. She wanted to interview me. And she wanted to understand what we stood for as a brand, where we were going, how we could tell this story, what mattered to us. And, I really respected that, because from the very beginning, it was this partnership. And the same thing is happening, with Tim Tebow. Bryce is also he's been a part of the family, Jay Ellis. And I think, when you have those relationships, and it's about the partnership of the two brands, and does that match up with where you're looking for the principles that you have as a brand? If there's anything that's off, it's not going to work, and it's not going to be true in front of in the consumer's eye. And I think that's what the most important thing is. And I think, the other thing is that it's, we are a family. We're this, they're a part of us. They're in the mix with us, and we actually have, we have great relationships with them. And I think that comes through on camera. It also comes through a little bit behind the scenes. And I think we have some bloopers from the Heisman shoot to just kind of show, like, this these are some of the best days that you're going to have in the office, actually.
Welcome. When you take an initiative. It's not this guy's first time.
I screwed that one up.
It's all right. Too much spin.
Tuck it in. Pancake security.
When the Felix catastrapesium meets the Abdullah oblongata. Let's go! You owe me $20!
Oh yeah. I fell asleep, man. Fell asleep over here. Sorry.
That's how you Heisman.
One of you guys need me a ride? I mean, everyone was calling me professional, and I messed up the first line. I blame you guys.
You gotta give me more, dog. What you want to put some emphasis?
Please.
I still feel pretty big.
Damn, that was good. Timing and everything. Woo!
Yeah, and I forgot to. Barry Sanders is also. He's amazing to work with. He actually came. He came to an employee event that we had a few months ago. But he has a dealership in Oklahoma. It's these are people that are part of the fold at Nissan with us.
I love the coach. He's a
Coach
riot.
Coach. They all call him. He doesn't have a real name. It's just Coach, and that's how everyone is referring to him. And we're in Video Village on the shoot, and we were kind of playing back some of the content earlier. I think it was actually from when he was in the car with Tim Tebow, and Bryce was sitting back there with us. He was like, "Coach is the GOAT." That's
great.
That's basically Coach Burrier.
Well, I think that's great. And if we can open it up to anyone who has a question for Allyson.
I love Barry Sanders.
Yes, he acts with his eyebrows. It's amazing.
His son is a Michigan State basketball player this year.
Yep.
Green.
Hi, how are you? Jim D'Antoni from Dish Media. I was curious, when you're breaking out target segments, are they different for EV users and segments than the ICE segment, or is it same segment, same audience, and you're just serving different ads to each?
We like to have segmented audiences for each of the products. And so I think we go beyond just demographics. It's actually more about mindsets. So we very much develop, kind of discrete audiences for each of our products. And then we determine kind of where is the type of content that they're going to respond to. And then we develop kind of the distribution plan of that around that.
Got one over here.
Hi, Amy Howard from Claritas. Has your partnership with EVgo helped drive adoption? And I did mean drive adoption.
Yeah, I mean, EVgo is the largest EV charging network in the U.S. right now. And obviously, we started working with them when we launched the Leaf, which was, I can't even believe it, it's over 12 years ago. It's like that product has been in the market. It's almost... it's almost a teenager how long that product has been in the market. And we launched a new one in 2018. But I think our relationship with them, has helped accelerate EV adoption. I think that's going to continue to accelerate at an even more rapid pace than where we are today.
Hi, Allyson. Jim Johnson from BDX.TV. My question is around, you mentioned some of the functional hurdles to overcome as far as people getting used to the idea of electric vehicles, but what about perception? We see a lot in our data that people perceive EVs as for coastal elites, kind of like the guy from FTX, if you will. So how do we overcome that from more of a perception perspective with marketing as our tool?
Yeah, and I think that's why we look at mindset. So where are those mindsets? And when you think about EVs, these are people that are interested in technology. They're interested in, depending on the vehicle segment, they're interested in things like, outdoor, more lifestyle things. And so we look at it that. We don't look at it as just coastal. And I think you're starting to see some really interesting things start to come through. Austin is a city, there are some of these other cities that are not on the coast that are very much EV cities. And so when we look at the marketing plan, obviously we want to look at where are there opportunities. In places like California, obviously they already have the highest proportion of EV adoption, but that's not where all the consumers are going to be. And, if we really want to accelerate EV, we need to be able to meet the needs of consumers that are more middle of the country and not necessarily just on the coast.
Well, I think that's it. And I forgot to mention you were our Marketer of the Year last year. So thank you again for coming to speak.
Thanks,
We really
everyone.
appreciate
Thank you.